OpenAI is working on a hardware product with the help of LoveFrom, Jony Ive's design firm. We know it exists and that it's supposed to be a new product category because they told us. What else do we know? Almost nothing. Today I'll try to compile all the information we have to figure out what it might be, and from that I'll make a plausible concept. Before saying anything, I want to address an assumption you may have. No, this is not the next AI pin. If you look at some of the concepts that circulated online and generally what people have been saying about this device, it might seem like it's confirmed that they are working on another wearable. I think it's because some people just read AI device and made an association with some of the previous attempts we saw. But of the little information we have, one of the few things we can be pretty sure about is that it's not a wearable, because again, they told us. The chief hardware officer of the company had to confirm this because of a legal dispute. The design is not yet finalized, but it is not an in-ear device nor a wearable device. From that same document, we get a confirmation that whatever it is, it's not shipping before the next year. Also, yeah, in case you missed it, IO is the name of the company working on this product. It's part of OpenAI now, but that wasn't always the case. The story goes like this. Jony Ive, who left the role of Apple Chief Design Officer in 2019, met with Sam Altman in 2023 to discuss AI and potential new form factors for it. In 2024, he co-founded IO, and starting from February, they spent between 6 and 8 months examining what had already been tried and making various prototypes. They considered a broad range of form factors, including objects that were desktop-based and mobile, wireless and wired, wearable and portable. They realized that what they were building was going to be extremely reliant on OpenAI anyway, so on the 9th of July 2025 they merged. As I said, they are not launching anytime soon. What else do we know? For some reason they wanted to confirm that this device will be the first of a family of products, but they never officially explained what this or any of the other ones will be like. They did, however, hint about problems they see with the current interaction models, use cases they had in mind, and a few other things. It's all very easy to miss. I have two options. I can ignore everything they said and invent something random, or I can try to read between the lines and make some informed guesses. Yeah, I'll do that. Between that video and the website, they made some claims that might be useful. First of all, at one point in the video, Altman starts describing the inefficiencies of asking questions to ChatGPT. I will return to this scene in a few minutes, but let's first assess the obvious. We don't know if this device has anything to do with image or video generation. I'm trying not to exclude any possibility, even the weird ones, but if he mentions the chat feature while making a case for specialized hardware, the two have to be related. Next, there is an idea they mention multiple times, which is creating things. Sometimes they also talk about research or learning, but especially creation and helping people create things. This is not obvious actually. Think about it. Most of the successful attempts at making new product categories in tech over the last 20 years have been about consumption of some kind, not creation. What makes it even weirder is that towards the end of the video, Altman literally says he wants everyone to have it. He wants it to be a mass market product. Stuff geared towards creation is always going to be more niche, but this is almost all we know. It makes more sense to try and find an idea that satisfies both conditions. Otherwise, what is the point? If we assume that his intentions of creating something so popular are legit, then it becomes safe to assume three additional things. This device has to have broad utility. It can't be something that goes after a specific niche, but it's useless to anyone else. It also can't be too expensive, and crucially, it can't rely on components too scarce to mass produce. This is important because it's what happened to the Vision Pro and people just refuse to understand this. Some call the Vision Pro a massive flop because it didn't sell millions of units in its first year, but the fact is that it never could have, not even if it retailed for $500. The Apple Vision Pro uses displays made by Sony. They are ridiculously expensive and high quality. They were willing to sell Apple approximately 900,000 units per year. Every device uses 2 of them, which means that even in the best case scenario, the Vision Pro would have sold less than 500,000 units. Returning to the topic of the video, what this means is that they can't use anything too exotic. I wouldn't put it past them to sell this device for little or no profit. I could see them doing stuff like offering discounts or even free devices to people who've already paid for ChatGPT for, I don't know, let's say at least 1 year. I could also see them requiring at least a Plus subscription. The device would act as a reason to keep it instead of switching to some other AI. Oh yeah, right, almost forgot. It's almost inevitable that this device will rely on an internet connection for the majority of what it does. For any serious task, you want the best model you can have. For the sake of completeness, I must mention that in addition to the official information, the Wall Street Journal reported on an internal meeting in which Sam Altman allegedly provided his employees with some more details on the matter. For the most part, it's all stuff that either confirms my previous interpretations completely or would be extremely safe to assume as a consequence of those interpretations. With one exception, the product will be capable of being fully aware of a user's surroundings and life. I didn't want to use leaks for this analysis, but this phrase is too interesting to ignore, because it's the first hint at something truly unique that they might be doing, and it would explain something we heard in the reveal. For this product to make sense, it has to be significantly better than phones and laptops at some key things. Otherwise, it has no reason for being. There's a whole section of the video where Sam explains the whole procedure for asking something to ChatGPT starting from scratch. He basically described the user flow. Of course, he wanted to highlight how much friction there is for the primary thing you do with your product. And I think this is one of the main things they want to fix with this new device. I'd argue that the inadequacy of modern devices as a way of interacting with AI becomes most apparent when trying to work on a long project, or generally in situations where there's a lot of stuff you need to know to understand the problem. You don't always need an AI's help, but when you do, you've got to remember and then write all the stuff you didn't tell it. This will happen at the beginning and multiple times afterwards. And this might be the key to understand everything. They want a way for AI to see and hear everything that's going on in real time. They want it to have the complete context without users having to provide it manually. So, with all of this in mind, I can finally show you my best guess as to what I think this device will be like. This is the I/O Totem. This device is a fully portable and screenless smart speaker with a 360 camera system, which lets you interact with an instance of ChatGPT through voice and video. It keeps track of everything happening in its proximity without you having to do anything. It's primarily meant to be used in situations where you know you will remain in the same area more or less. The stand at the bottom can be opened up for stability when you want to put it on a table, but also closed, which transforms it into a handle, which can be used to hang the device in situations where it makes sense. The idea is that it should be positioned where you can have a good view of the whole area you're going to be using it in, so that thanks to the 360 camera you never have to pick it up and point it at something to use its visual capabilities. Currently, if you want to ask ChatGPT about, say, the meaning of a phrase in a book you don't understand, you have a few options. Open the app, write it down, remember to include the name of the book or it'll answer with nonsense, wait for the answer, read, close the app, return to your book. Alternatively, take a photo ensuring that everything is visible. Open the app, specify what confuses you because it doesn't know. Wait more because it's a photo. Read, close the app, return to your book. With this device, as long as you gave it a decent view of your desk and enough time to figure out the situation, it almost inevitably saw enough details along the way to figure out what book it is by itself. And since it can see the contents of the current page, this whole interaction becomes a, hey, what does this mean? And you get an answer. Of course, the obvious way of interacting with the device will be by speaking and listening, but you can also just write through the mobile app or the web client, if you're in a public place and don't want to speak. The device will still see everything and you will keep wasting less time explaining stuff, which is the main point. These models have tons of emergent capabilities, and giving them better embodiment, in theory, should only make them more powerful. The most fascinating thing to me about this custom hardware is that it would allow OpenAI to experiment with a much more sophisticated type of memory. Let's return to the book example. I didn't say why you found that part difficult, but a common reason is that it requires mastery of a previous concept and you don't realize you just don't have it yet. Maybe you read it multiple times. After a while you decided you understood it well enough and moved on, but no, it wasn't enough, and now this misunderstanding is having cascading effects. How's a language model supposed to help you with that? It can only see what you give it. You'd have to already suspect of holes in your knowledge and intentionally construct your questions, including your interpretations, to see if it finds something wrong. First of all, it takes time. Second, it's not obvious when this is the case, nor what is the thing you misinterpreted. It can be a mess. But an AI that sees everything can notice that you spent more time on that page than usual, or pick up confusion from your body language or other clues we don't even know are there. The more you use it, as long as you keep memory enabled, the more it should understand how you think. And the more it knows, the faster it should become at giving you the answer you actually want, instead of the one you think you want. It's not just about saving time, as you can see, because you didn't know that you didn't know. There is no obvious way of achieving this result with the limits of the current interaction model. In my opinion, this is the minimum viable product of an idea like this. The value proposition would be a bit difficult to convey, but I think it's there. Like, I can think of situations where I would actually use it. Ideally, it should be able to deal with groups of people as well. In work situations, that's kind of important. It can help with brainstorming ideas or general organization, and it can keep track of everything that is being said. But to do this correctly, it must distinguish people in a consistent way. They could experiment with making what it understands about people visible as well. Useful to correct misunderstandings. The more I reflect on this idea, the more I understand why it makes sense that it's not aware of. Because of how it works, it needs to constantly use the cameras and the microphones. Since it doesn't have the same requirements as actual cameras, maybe it could be more efficient, but it's still going to chug through battery life. If it was wearable, it'd have to heavily compromise on duration, and it would be impossible to recharge while it's being used. It would also inevitably have a smaller field of view, which means it would be much worse in collaborative settings, and it wouldn't see your face. So forget about all that stuff on emergent capabilities and body language. All of this for what? All the situations where you'd use this device are episodic, with a beginning and an end. There aren't many good reasons to wear it all day long, and you probably wouldn't want to anyway. A product like this might be exactly what they need in a similar moment. Maybe it's not something that will help with solving more complex math problems, but embodiment could have a bigger impact on how the average person uses these models than anything else. I'm of the opinion that giving these AIs a more complete experience of the world should make them better. In fact, I believe this also applies to humans, and it's one of the reasons why I maintain that the ideal future of computing is spatial. I made a whole video on the topic, check it out if you want. Ciao!